Hey guys, tonight we walk back into the streets of Jerusalem, not when crowds cheer, not when trumpets sound, but at the hour just before everything goes still. It's that strange hour after the market closes but before the lamps are lit. That in-between hush, like the city's holding its breath. You're here just in time for the gate to close. And you wouldn't survive this. The soldiers are impatient tonight, clanking their spears against the lintels. The sun's dipped just low enough to cast the whole western wall in blood-orange shadow. You slip through the stone archway as the guards mutter about latecomers. One of them gives you a look like he's seen too many zealots and not enough tax collectors. You nod back. That seems to be enough. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Share your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing where we're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk under the creaking gate just as it shuts behind you. The sound is thick wood, metal, and finality. There's something about that noise that rattles deeper than the ribs. Maybe it's because gates in scripture are always more than gates. They're symbols, divides, decisions. Tonight, we're walking into a world full of those divide 7 types of people who never quite make it through. At the edge of the square, there's an old man sweeping dust with a palm branch. He doesn't look up when you pass. He's humming a psalm, but you can't tell which one. Something minor, something half mourned. He brushes a beetle off the step and mutters, "Too many voices, not enough listening." You pause, unsure if he's talking to you. He isn't, or maybe he is. You take the southern steps toward the old quarter. The air smells of dried lentils, burned fat, and hope that's gone sour. Somewhere, someone's still roasting lamb from yesterday's feast. But the joy has settled into ashes. That's what happens after Passover sometimes. Too much memory, not enough peace. You turn left past the ruined olive press. The stone is stained with age and old oil, and there's a crack running through the basin like a forgotten prophecy. You wonder if it split the day the veil did. Scholars still debate whether the whole city shook when he died or just the hearts that were ready to feel it. A boy runs past, barefoot, dragging a broken yoke behind him like a toy. The clatter makes you jump, but no one else reacts. Not the veiled woman holding 2 jars. Not the elder sunning himself in the corner, eyes half lidded like a lion who's learned disappointment. You pass by a stone wall with a patch of crimson graffiti scratched into it. Messiah or nothing. Underneath it, someone has scrawled, "I'm still deciding." You keep walking, and then the alley narrows. The light dims. You find yourself at a crossroads. Literally. 4 ways branch out from the heart of Jerusalem, like a cruciform compass. But the one ahead straight ahead leads somewhere different. Not north, not south. It leads to a gate that isn't made of wood or brass. It's not even visible yet, you feel it. Like a pull behind the ribs. Like when someone says your name in a crowd and you don't know why it matters yet. That's where we're going tonight. Toward the invisible gate. The one some pass through easily, even while limping. And the one others miss while standing right in front of it. You walk forward. The air thickens slightly, like fog made of memory. Like the dreams you had before you stopped believing in them. A fig leaf brushes your shoulder just one, and you remember the first fig tree you saw him curse. Remember the silence that followed. You pass a pillar, cracked and vine-wrapped, with the faintest carving at the base. A shepherd's crook and a wolf's paw print. Opposite directions. Same path. The wind shifts, and for a moment, you hear the distant call of a shofar. It doesn't sound like celebration. It sounds like warning. You step through what feels like a curtain of air, and suddenly, you're not in the city anymore. You're in a different Jerusalem. Not a different place, just a deeper version. The spiritual one. The one they speak of in Revelation and dreams and desperate psalms. It's still made of stone. Still smells like dust and sacrifice. But here, people walk differently. They shimmer slightly, or they flicker, and you start to notice the difference. The flickering ones are fading slowly, gently. They're not burning out, just not igniting. You follow the ones that shine. They walk toward a narrow gate. It's not flashy. There's no grand arch or banner or temple choir. It's more like a garden door, unassuming. But the light spills from under it like morning breaking open. A scribe walks past you. He's muttering to himself, clutching a scroll to his chest like it's a passport. He glances at the gate, hesitates, then turns away. He disappears into a wide arch with polished stone and gold inlays. And fades. Not all at once, but enough. You step closer to the small gate. An inscription above it glows faintly. You squint to read it. It says, "Not all who wander are lost, but some refuse to knock." You swallow. Your tongue tastes of wine gone warm. There's a bench just beside the gate. You sit for a while, waiting, watching. One by one, the unshining pass you by. Some carry scrolls, others swords. One woman clutches a balance scale, even though it's rusted, and leans hard to one side. They all hesitate, then choose the broad way. You look back at the narrow gate, still cracked open, still waiting, like it has been all along. You stand slowly, brushing the dust from your knees. That little bench, maybe stone, maybe something older, has left an imprint on your skin. It looks like a key, not a carving, a mark. You wonder if it's meant for unlocking something, or just to remind you what can't be opened once the time is wrong. You walk deeper into this thinner version of Jerusalem, the one most people never see. The street curves toward the temple walls, but instead of pilgrims and psalm singers, you see, well, not quite a crowd. A few individuals, spaced apart like punctuation marks in a sentence God never finished. The first man you meet is dressed like royalty, but not the real kind. He's in fine linen, white as salt, and trimmed with blue cords. Every fold of his robe is ironed by the desert wind. His sandals gleam like they've never touched anything sinful. You get the feeling he fasts twice a week without being asked. He's reciting something to himself. Hebrew, fluid, and fast. His mouth moves like the verse lives in his throat. You recognize Psalm 119, all of it. He's halfway through. The Mem stanza. He doesn't notice you until you're directly in his line of sight. Then he gives you a polite nod, the kind reserved for strangers too curious to be ignored. You ask him if he's waiting for something. He answers, "Waiting, number? I'm preparing." Preparing for what? The kingdom, the judgment, the reward. You ask if he expects to pass through the gate. His nostrils flare slightly. "I have never broken the law." There's no pride in his voice, but there's no humility either. It's like talking to a stone tablet that got dressed up for synagogue. You ask if he's ever bowed, not physically, but inwardly. If his heart ever fell flat in the presence of the holy. He blinks, then frowns. "I know the name," he says. "I pronounce it properly. I observe the Sabbath. I tithe. I pray. What else is there?" You pause. Because that's the question, isn't it? What else is there? You ask if he ever needed mercy. He bristles, just for a second. Then his tone goes clinical. "Mercy is for the broken. I was raised whole." You nod slowly and step back. The man returns to his recitation. His voice perfectly pitched, rhythm steady. His gaze never lifts again. And the strange thing? He flickers, only faintly, but is there, like the shimmer of heat on stones in the afternoon sun. A distortion, something off. You keep walking. Further down, there's a place where the wall bends sharply, and you find a scrap of parchment nailed to the corner. It's torn, and the ink is smudged. You lean in and can just make out the words, "They honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." Someone has scribbled a question beneath it. But how far is too far? You don't have an answer. No one does, really. Scholars still debate whether pride was the first sin or merely its most polished mask. But in places like this, where silence rings louder than bells, you begin to suspect that spiritual arrogance is the one mask God never lets past the gate. Up ahead, you see a torch flickering in a wall sconce. It's daytime, or something like it, but the torch burns anyway. Beside it stands a woman in dusty red robes. She's holding a jar alabaster, cracked at the lip. Her eyes track your movement. She didn't make it, she says without context. You pause. Who? The woman taps her jar, absent-minded. The one who walked just before you. The man with the perfect posture and empty hands. You think of the linen man. He had everything except the look of someone who's ever been forgiven. The woman glances toward the narrow gate in the distance. That door, she says softly. It doesn't care how straight your back is. It only opens for bent knees. You look at her jar again. The cracks run like fault lines. You wonder how often she's poured herself out. She smiles almost knowingly. He washes feet, you know. Still does, even after the resurrection, just quietly. You nod, unsure what to say. Before you leave, she adds, if you ever feel too clean for your own good, ask him to find the dirt you missed. You walk away, the sound of her voice staying with you like a psalm echoing in a cavern. The next few steps feel heavier, not because of guilt, but because you realize something unspoken. The proud, they never bow. Not in worship, not in weakness, not even in gratitude. They live upright and die standing. But the gate, it's sized for kneelers. You reach a pool shallow, still, reflecting everything above it with eerie precision. A single olive leaf floats on the surface. You crouch beside it and touch the water. It's cool. And for a moment, you think you see your own face. Not as it is, but as it might be. Tired, yes, but soft-eyed. Humbled. A donkey brays somewhere behind a wall. You laugh. Even here, donkeys still don't care about sacred moments. You stand and keep moving. There's still a long way to go. And the next soul you'll meet? She traded her voice for applause. But you'll get there. For now, you whisper under your breath the only prayer that seems to fit this strange and silent place. Break me gently. And the wind seems to nod. You hear her before you see her. Not loudly, nothing here is loud, but like someone rehearsing a line they've said 1,000 times. Soft and precise. The sound weaves between the olive trees like perfume in morning fog. You round the corner and find her standing on the edge of a worn courtyard, where cracked tiles still carry the echo of sandals, sermons, and shouts. She's humming. A simple tune. You know it from somewhere, maybe one of David's psalms put to melody, or maybe something she made up to keep herself company. Her robes are rich in color but frayed at the hems. She's not poor, but she's tired. Not starving, but drained. Around her feet are faded petals, maybe from a performance, maybe a memory. You can't tell. Her eyes flick towards you as you approach, and you feel like you've stepped onto a stage without a script. You're late, she says. You blink. Late? For the show. She gestures broadly to the open space in front of her, empty but alive with ghostlight. Her voice is smooth, with a lilting accent that dances somewhere between joy and irony. I used to feel this place, she says. Songs, laughter, parables. I followed him once. So did half the city. You ask what happened. She shrugs. He stopped performing. You wait, letting the silence hold. She continues. He started talking about death, about eating flesh and drinking blood, about carrying crosses. People don't clap for that. You nod slowly. So you left? I stepped back, she corrects. Took a break, waited for him to lighten up again. You look around, the courtyard is cracked. The fig tree nearby withering, one leaf dangling like a question mark. And did he, you ask? She smiles faintly. He lightened up all right, floated right off the ground and vanished. You can't tell if she's mocking or mourning. But you saw him? Oh yes, fed 5,000, raised the dead, rode into town like a king. And when the crowd shouted Hosanna, I was right there on my tiptoes, waving my palms. I was someone then. You see it clearly now. She didn't love him, she loved the crowd that gathered because of him. A swallow darts overhead. She watches it and says, people don't realize how addicting it is. The cheers, the attention, the sense that you're close to greatness, and therefore, great. She steps toward the center of the courtyard and spins slowly, arms wide. For a moment, she looks like a child playing dress-up in someone else's story. But when the miracles pause, she says, the crowd scattered. He didn't chase us. That hurt. You ask if she ever went back. She nods. I did. I tried. But by then, the crowd had moved on, and so had he. He was quieter then. Too quiet. You want to ask, do you miss him? But you already know the answer. She misses who she was when people watched her watching him. Behind her, on the courtyard wall, is a fading mural barely legible. A line of people following a bright figure. But none of their faces have detail. Just strokes of pigment. They could be anyone. You ask, why stay here? She looks around and says, because sometimes people return. And I like reminding them who they were when it was easy to believe. You study her face. There's beauty still, but also something hollow-like. A temple with its arc removed. She leans close and whispers, he never cared about the size of the crowd, only the shape of the heart. You ask if she'd follow him again if he walked past right now. She hesitates. And in that hesitation, you understand everything. You leave her there, humming again, a tune with no words. As you walk, the wind picks up a few flower petals and scatters them ahead of you, like applause with no audience. You step over them gently. Ahead, a stone stairway curves downward and you follow it toward a flickering campfire. The scent of cumin and charred bread hangs in the air. Someone's cooking and muttering. You sit beside the man, a trader by his dress. Gold rings on fingers, pouches around his waist, eyes darting like he's always scanning for value. Hungry? He asks without looking. You nod. He tosses you a flat piece of bread still warm. Eat it fast, it dries quick. You thank him. He grunts. Don't thank me, I'm not kind, just practical. You ask his name, he laughs. Names are for contracts and graves. Neither help you much once the deal's gone bad. He chews, then leans closer. I sold it, you know. Sold what? My birthright. You blink. He shrugs. Not literally, but close enough. Gave up what was mine for something hot and fast, and now. You glance at the bread in your hand. Like this? Exactly like that. He pokes the fire. Sparks leap like startled birds. Grace is free, he says, but it's not cheap. I traded legacy for lunch. You ask if he regrets it. He nods. Every morning, right before dawn. And then, softer. But every evening, I convince myself I had no choice. You sit with him for a while, chewing slowly. The fire crackles. Scholars still debate, he says suddenly, whether Esau could have reclaimed his place if he'd really tried. But I think once you sell something holy, you don't get to name the price of redemption. You watch the firelight dance in his eyes. He sighs. Still, I keep waiting, just in case he decides I'm worth buying back. You finish the bread. It's gone dry, just like he warned. Still warm at the center. You wonder how long that warmth lasts. He doesn't look at you as you leave, but he does call out, if you find someone still holding their birthright, tell them not to trade it for steam. The words follow you up the path. You clutch your robe tighter. The night is growing thinner now. Dawn is smudging the edge of the sky, and somewhere ahead, a well waits, along with someone who knows exactly how it feels to be forgiven, and then refuse to forgive. The well is older than the road beside it. You feel that in your bones as you approach stones worn smooth by centuries of hands, and the quiet hush that surrounds places which have overheard too many secrets. The sun isn't fully up yet, but there's enough light to make the dust shimmer like powdered pearl. She's already there, the old woman, leaning slightly, wrapped in thick linen that's faded in parts, embroidered in others. Her face is creased in a way that suggests laughter and loss came often and close together. Her hands are strong, one of them rests on the pulley rope, the other on the edge of the well like a punctuation mark. She greets you without turning. You're late. You raise an eyebrow. People keep saying that. She chuckles, then sighs. Maybe because there's only one moment to be early for. All the others, just catching up. You sit beside her. The stone is cool. The rope groans a little under tension. She tells you this is Jacob's well those scholars. Still debate if it's the exact one. Doesn't matter. Stories cling to it either way. I met him here, she says simply. The teacher, the man who told me everything I'd ever done. You nod. You know the story. Samaria, midday, a conversation that shouldn't have happened. I told him the truth, she says. Sort of. I said I had no husband. He said I'd had 5. Not accusing, just knowing. She looks at you now, eyes dark and sharp. It was the first time someone saw me and didn't flinch. You swallow hard. I ran into town after that, told everyone. Me. The woman they crossed streets to avoid. And they followed me, listened, believed. You ask, what happened next? She smiles thinly. We asked him to stay, and he did, for 2 days. 2 whole days. Teaching, healing. Like a tent of mercy was pitched over the village. You wait. But then he left, she says. And something strange happened. We started arguing. About what? Everything, she says. Whether he was the Messiah. Whether the water he gave us was real or symbolic. Whether his words meant change or just comfort. She shakes her head. And me? I became important. The woman who met him. The one with the story. Her mouth curls downward. There was another woman, she says, who owed me money. Just a small debt. I could have let it go. You already know she didn't. I dragged her in front of everyone, she says. Quieter now. Made her kneel. Demanded repayment. Cited the law. Said I was setting an example. You feel the silence hang like a dropped veil. Someone came to me later, she continues. Asked how, of all people, could be so cruel. She doesn't look at you. I said, justice matters. And they said, so does mercy. I told them not to preach at me, that I'd earned my right to judge. Her hand tightens on the rope. I had been forgiven, she says, but I didn't know how to pass it on. The bucket reaches the top. She lifts it with surprising ease. Water sloshes, clear and impossibly cold. She hands you a small clay cup and gestures. You drink. It tastes like honesty and memory. I see her sometimes, she adds. The woman I accuse, she avoids me, doesn't meet my eyes. I wonder if she prays for me, or just prays I disappear. You set the cup down. She moved to Galilee, I think, the woman says. Got married. Has a child now. I hear she's kind. You ask if she's ever reached out. She shakes her head. It's easier to tell stories about being forgiven than to live like it happened. A bird lands on the well's rim, stares at you both, then flies off again. I still tell my story, she says, watching the bird go, but I've stopped expecting applause. You nod. She looks up. Do you think he'd speak to me again? You hesitate. He never really stopped. She smiles at that. Before you leave, she pulls a small piece of fabric from her satchel. It's old, faded, embroidered with the Hebrew for mercy. She presses it into your palm. Give it to someone who needs it, she says, but not someone who deserves it. You walk away with the cloth clenched in your hand, warm from her touch. The road leads upward again, climbing toward low hills. As the sun rises, it casts long shadows that stretch like reaching hands. You hear footsteps ahead. A man walks alone. You catch up. He nods at you but says nothing for a while. When he does, his voice is soft. I was almost a believer. You don't reply. The story is already unfolding. I saw him heal, he says. Heard the voice. Felt the fire. But something inside me always hesitated. He pauses. Not disbelief. Just not quite enough belief. You both keep walking. Dust rises gently with each step. I told myself I needed one more sign, he says. One more confirmation. Something personal. You ask, and did you get it? He nods. Too late. You glance at his eyes. They're rimmed red, but dry. When he died, he continues, I wept like someone who had lost what he never truly held. A breeze brushes past. There are many of us, he adds. The almost, we attend, we nod, we sing, but when the time comes to jump in the water, he lets the sentence fade. Scholars still debate, he says, whether people like me were ever close, but I think the closer you are, the colder the wind feels when you turn away. You both stop and look out over the valley. The morning is full now, full of possibilities. You think about the woman at the well, about mercy, about regrets that age slower than the body. You offer the cloth. He takes it, and then he walks on. The road narrows where the olive trees lean in. You find yourself walking beneath a canopy of dusty leaves and gnarled branches, the kind that look like they've heard every prayer and betrayal whispered in their shade. The air smells like crushed green fruit and the ghost of yesterday's fire. You step careful because the ground here isn't just dirt, it's memory. You nearly trip over him. He's crouched beside the road, face hidden in his hands, shoulders twitching with a soundless sob. Not the theatrical kind, not loud or showy, just the kind that trembles your entire body like grief has settled into the bones and refused to leave. He notices you but doesn't speak right away. Instead, he holds out a small object, a single silver coin. You take it gingerly. "I used to be owed this," he says, voice hollow. "Now I carry it as a warning." You look again. The coin is pitted, worn, smooth. You can barely make out Caesar's face on it. The irony doesn't escape you. He gestures to the grove. "I buried a man here once." You ask who? "My brother." You blink. "By blood?" "No," he replies, "but he called me brother." He wipes his eyes on his sleeve, stained with oil and dust. "I owed him everything, and when I was forgiven, I felt like I could finally breathe again, like I'd been dragged out of the sea." You sit next to him. "I went home and wrote songs about him," he continues. "I told everyone I met. I even testified in court once, defending a widow from false charges." You nod, waiting for the turn. "And then," he says, "I ran into someone who owed me. There it is. A few silver coins," he mutters. "Nothing really. But it was the principle," I told myself. "If I let them get away with it, what kind of steward was I?" You ask what he did. "I dragged them into the street," he says, "by the collar, made a scene, demanded repayment on the spot." You don't speak. "He wept," the man says. "Begged, said his child was sick, that he'd pay me back in 2 weeks." You already know what happened. "I had him jailed," he whispers, "not because I needed the money, but because I wanted control." The coin in your hand suddenly feels heavier. "I thought I was serving justice," he adds, "but I was just feeding something in me I hadn't starved." He leans back, resting against the trunk of an olive tree, eyes staring upward. Word got around. The same people who had heard me preach about mercy now saw me choke a man for a debt. You ask what happened next. "He was released," the man says. "His child died 3 days later." The sentence hangs like a crucifix. You close your eyes. "I went back to the man's house to apologize," he says. "No one answered the door, but the neighbors watched me from the windows. I could feel their silence like 1,000 stones." He holds out both hands, palms up. "I was forgiven once, truly, deeply, but I didn't pass it on. I thought receiving it once was enough, that I could store it like oil in a flask." He shakes his head. "But grace isn't a keepsake. It spoils if you don't give it away." You nod slowly. He gestures toward a small altar nearby, cobbled from uneven stones and fig branches. Atop it lies a torn piece of cloth, frayed and weathered. "I've waited here ever since," he says. "Some days I think I see him, in the rustle of branches, in the way the birds pause before flying." You glance down the path. The trees part ahead, like curtains. "Go," he says. "Keep walking." You hesitate. Then ask, "What should I do with this coin?" He shrugs. "Give it to someone who thinks they've never been forgiven. Or melt it. Either way, don't keep it." You pocket it for now. The path leads you to a field scattered with broken stones, the kind builders toss aside when they're too jagged for corners or too soft for weight. You spot a man stacking them anyway. No blueprints, just instinct. He smiles as you approach. "Foundations are funny, aren't they?" You ask what he means. "Everyone wants a rooftop first," he says. "The view, the breeze, but the strength is underneath." You watch him fit 2 misshapen stones together. Surprisingly, they hold. "I followed him for years," he says, "built a life around his words, quoted the parables, shared them at every meal." He pats a stone. "But I never dug deep." You ask what that means. "I lived on surface soil," he replies, "said all the right things. But when the storm came..." He doesn't finish. He just points to a pile of collapsed beams nearby. "My house fell," he says spectacularly. You sit on a log. The wind shifts. It smells faintly of ash. "I love the feeling of faith," he says, the energy, the songs, the crowds. But I skipped the hard part. Obedience, surrender. That stuff felt too heavy, like it would drag me under. You ask what changed. I'm rebuilding, he says simply. Stone by stone. This time I'm starting with the part no one sees. You glance down. His hands are raw, but his eyes are clear. The first time, he says, I built for admiration. This time, I build for survival. A bird perches on his half-finished wall, chirps once, flies away. You stand. Remember, he calls after you. Faith that floats is easy. Faith that holds when the storm hits, that's the real architecture. You smile. The coin in your pocket presses against your thigh like a reminder. And so you walk on. The road hums beneath your feet, sun high and hot now. The olive groves thin, giving way to open fields dotted with wandering sheep and the occasional stubborn fig tree. You trail a dusty path where conversations once sparked like flint, where parables were told, where strangers once walked beside resurrection without knowing it. That's when you meet him standing at a bend in the road, staring at the sky like it just told a joke he half remembers. He's old, but not brittle, worn like leather, not fragile like parchment. His hands are clasped behind his back, and when he turns to you, there's something in his eyes you can't name. Not fire, not coldness, something in between. You believe all this? He asks without preamble. You tilt your head. Believe what? That he rose, he says. That he'll return. That it all meant something. You answer cautiously. Yes. He nods, like he's heard that before. I almost did. You wait. I was there, you know, he says, taking a step toward his shade. Listened to him speak. Saw him heal. Tasted the bread he broke. You follow. I love the stories, he continues. Love the way he flipped the world upside down, blessed the poor honored children, forgave whores and taxmen. You both sit on a warm stone wall. But something in me held back, he says. Every time. You ask why? Because belief costs, he replies. Not the warm, fuzzy kind, the terrifying kind. The kind that asks you to change your name, your job, your friends. I wasn't ready. He picks up a stone, rolls it in his palm. I told myself I'd get there, he adds. Someday. I figured if I just kept listening long enough, I'd eventually feel it, whatever it was that made Peter jump out of boats and Mary break perfume jars. The stone leaves his hand and lands with a thud in the grass. But years passed, he says, and the more I waited, the more I told myself waiting was wisdom. That doubt made me discerning. You ask what changed? Nothing, he admits, and that was the problem. He closes his eyes. There's a danger in almost belief. It dresses up like humility. It quotes scripture. It attends gatherings, but it never says yes. You remember something bread without yeast, a meal made in haste, the kind you eat when you're ready to leave everything behind. He never ate that meal, you realize, never packed. I watched him die, the man continues. I watched the sky turn black, and I thought, if that wasn't enough to move me, maybe nothing would be. A sheep bleats somewhere in the distance, indifferent to your existential unraveling. He leans in. I envy Thomas, you know. At least he asked to touch. At least he reached. You sit in silence. I wasn't a doubter, he says. I was a drifter. I was always almost ready. You stand, feeling the ache of his confession settle in your chest like fog. He doesn't follow. As you walk on, his voice floats behind you. Don't be like me. The wind picks up, dust swirls, you shield your eyes, and when the road clears, you see the ruins ahead. A house, or what's left of it. Wooden beams collapsed in a tangle. The stone walls still stand, mostly, but they lean like tired soldiers after battle. A child's clay toy lies half buried near the threshold. You step inside carefully. Someone's there brushing ash from a carved lintel. A woman, middle-aged, face freckled with soot and sun. She looks up, nods once, then returns to her task. Storm, she says simply. You nod. She continues sweeping, clearing space around what looks like a cracked basin. He built this for us, she says. My husband. Said it will last 100 years. You run your fingers along the wall. The stone is soft, crumbles slightly. We skipped the foundation, she adds. Too costly. He said if we just built quickly, we could start our lives sooner. You ask if anyone was hurt. No, she replies. We weren't home. Mercy, I suppose. You crouch beside her. We always meant to go back and fix it, she says. After harvest, after taxes, after the next child. She chuckles bitter and warm. You know how it is. You do. I used to believe in what we built, she says. Now I wonder if I just believed in the illusion of progress. The sun filters through a hole in the ceiling. Dust dances like the ghost of plans. I still love him, she says suddenly. Christ, I do. But I think I followed him like a schedule, not a savior. You nod, feeling that in your bones. I told myself doing was enough, she says. Feeding the poor, praying at dusk, saying the right things. You ask, what now? She shrugs. I'm digging, she says. Finally, a real foundation. If it takes the rest of my life, so be it. You glance around. The rubble is real. So is her resolve. She offers you a chipped bowl of water. You sip, it's cold, refreshing, earned. You'll meet others like me, she says, but not all of them start over. Some just walk away. You leave her kneeling in the dirt, trowel in hand, future unrolled before her like a scroll waiting to be written. Further down the road, a fig tree casts wide shade. You sit beneath it and think of the man who almost believed, and the woman who finally did. The tree bears no fruit yet, but the leaves are strong. The soil seems good. Maybe this one's different. The fig tree shade clings to your shoulders long after you rise. It feels like an old coat, comforting but heavy. You move on, slow now, footsteps quiet. The road is straighter here, worn by time and sandals. A few shepherd boys wave as you pass, their flutes piping some ancient tune that makes you feel oddly homesick, though you're not sure for where. Just past a small hill you spot a house. Not a ruin this time. It's still standing, modest, square, clay walls and a roof thatched with reeds. Smoke drifts lazily from the chimney, and you can hear the rhythmic clatter of something being chopped. You knock gently. A voice calls, "Come in," but wipe your feet dust is the enemy of peace. You obey. Inside, it's dim but warm. Oil lamps flicker. The scent of lentils and garlic hangs thick. A man sits at a low table, methodically slicing vegetables with the precision of someone used to sharp things. He doesn't look up. I know why you're here, he says. Everyone comes eventually. You take a seat across from him. I've done everything right, he says, still slicing. Every festival, every fast, every tithe and offering. I've prayed the Psalms until they stitched themselves into my dreams. He pauses. The knife hovers midair. But I never loved him. You say nothing. What's there to say? I love the doing, he explains. The checklists, the rituals, the structure. Loved how clean it made me feel, like holiness was math. He finally looks up. His eyes are tired, not from lack of sleep, but from lack of rest. I watched others fall apart, he says. Watched them weep and wail and throw themselves at his feet. And I judged them for it. You ask what changed. My son died, he says. He doesn't elaborate, doesn't need to. The silence that follows is thick and reverent. I did everything I was supposed to do, he continues. Offered sacrifices, recited blessing after blessing, waited for the peace to descend like dew on the fields. He leans back, eyes on the ceiling. It never came. You trace the pattern of the rug with your finger. It looks like vines or veins. I realized then, he says softly, that I built a temple without a heart. You whisper, and now? He gives a small smile. I've stopped slicing for a while. Just been sitting, listening, wondering what it means to feel loved, not just obeyed. He picks up the knife again, but this time, it's slower, gentler. I used to think salvation came from right action, he says. Now I think it begins with brokenness. You stay a while, share a bowl of stew. The man doesn't say much after that. He just hums. The tune is simple, wordless. But it fills the house better than any prayer you've heard recited in the synagogue. When you leave, he doesn't follow. But you feel followed by something like a new definition of holiness is trailing you like a shadow. Further down the path, near the edge of the city, the sounds shift. Sharper, faster. crowded. You find yourself in a courtyard, small, dusty. Two men are arguing, loudly. You always twist the scriptures, one says. And you twist the Messiah into whatever suits you, the other spits back. A third voice older, quieter, tries to interject. Brothers, this is not the way. They don't hear him. Or maybe they do and choose not to care. You watch as the crowd gathers. Onlookers lean against walls, eyes flicking between the two like they're watching a game. You catch fragments of doctrine, theology, prophecy. The words are sharp, polished like weapons. No one mentions grace. You spot a woman standing alone. She's watching too, but not the argument. Her eyes are on the ground. You approach her. Do they do this often, you ask? She nods. Every week. You glance back at the men. What are they fighting about this time? Who's really saved, she says. You raise an eyebrow? They know all the verses, she adds, but I've never seen either of them share a loaf of bread with the poor man who sleeps near the gate. She sighs. I used to be one of them. Knew all the right words, none of the right people. You sit beside her on the low wall. There are so many who do good, she says. Serve at the temple, care for the widows, but you ask them to feel and they freeze. You nod. You've met them. You've been them. The Pharisees knew the law better than anyone, she says. But love, that's what tripped them up. She points to the men. They think faith is about being right. I think it's about being real. You ask if she still believes. She smiles. Yes, but not in the way I used to. She offers you a fig. It's perfectly ripe, sweet, unexpected. You walk away as the argument behind you reaches a crescendo, but their words sound hollow now, like clanging cymbals in a room with no echo. Back in the quiet of a grove, you sit beneath a tree again. Different tree, same posture. You look at your hands, they're dusty, worn, but open. That's new. You whisper a prayer. Not a formal one. Not even a complete sentence. Just longing. And for the first time all day, it doesn't echo back empty. It lands somewhere. Maybe in the heart of the one who sees past sacrifice into spirit. Maybe in a God who never asked for burnt offering so much as mercy. You stay beneath that tree longer than expected. Long enough to watch the shadows change shape. Long enough to forget what time is. The bark at your back feels like memory. The leaves whisper things you can't quite hear. Eventually, the wind nudges you onward. The city grows thinner behind you. Less noise, fewer people. The road curls like a ribbon into the hills. You crest one and spot a narrow temple, tucked neatly into a grove of almond trees. It's smaller than most, humble, but clean almost surgically so. Every tile in place, every stone swept. You enter through a low doorway, bowing instinctively. The air is cool, sacred. You don't feel watched here, just measured. A priest stands at the far end, arranging bowls and incense. He moves with quiet perfection, like each gesture has been rehearsed 1,000 times. His robes are immaculate, not a crease out of place. He doesn't notice you at first. Or maybe he does, but pretends not to. You wait. Eventually, he turns. His face is expressionless. Not stern, just absent. You're here for something, he says. You nod, understanding. He considers this, then gestures to a bench. You sit. I've served here for 33 years, he begins. Haven't missed a single offering, not one. He lists festivals, numbers, sacrifices, burnt, grain, fellowship, guilt. His voice is clinical, like a ledger being read aloud. I know the regulations of Leviticus better than I know my own dreams, he says. You ask gently, do you still dream? He doesn't answer. You press further. Do you remember the last time you wept? He smiles thinly. Emotions, cloud precision. There it is. You watch as he lights incense with trembling hands. The smoke rises straight, perfect. I buried my wife last winter, he says, almost offhand. You blink. I'm sorry. He shrugs. She was kind, but not observant. You wait for more, but there's none. I said all the right prayers, he continues, recited every psalm, Saturday Shiva exactly as required, and yet, he trails off. And yet, his fingers twitch. His mouth tightens. It was like nothing touched, he whispers. The rituals kept moving, but I didn't. He looks at the altar. They say obedience pleases God, but I wonder, does he ever just want honesty? You glance around the temple. Everything is beautiful, flawless, but cold. He follows your gaze. I used to think cleanliness was next to godliness. Now, I think it might be beside emptiness. There is silence between you, long and awkward. Why stay, you ask. He doesn't blink, because if I leave, I don't know who I am. You think of all the tasks he's done for decades, of lambs laid down, of oil poured, of bread baked without yeast, again and again as if leaven were sin itself. And you realize he's done all the right things. But without love, it's just smoke. You leave him there, arranging bowls with practiced hands. You don't judge, you just ache. The road outside is golden with late afternoon. You walk on, heart heavier than your sandals. Near the bend, you find a man by a small field. He's planting something's low, careful movements, as if the soil were holy. You wave. He looks up and smiles. Come to plant or come to talk, he asks. You sit beside him. Talk for now. He wipes his hands on a cloth. I used to be a scribe, he says without prompt. Knew every scroll from Genesis to the prophets. Could quote full chapters from memory. You raise your eyebrows. He nods. But then something strange happened. I met a woman who didn't know a single verse. Not one. But she forgave her sister for stealing her inheritance. He chuckles. I couldn't even forgive a man for bumping into me in the marketplace. You grin. So I quit, he says. Not because I stopped believing, but because I realize belief without transformation is just echo. You like this man. I'm planting mustard, he says. Smallest of all seeds, but you give it time. His eyes crinkle at the corners. You ask, do you miss the scrolls? He shakes his head. I miss thinking I was important. I don't miss thinking I was right. He hands you a seed. Love, he says. That's the soil, that's the water, that's the sun. Without it, nothing grows. Not faith, not hope, not truth. You stare at the tiny thing in your palm. It barely weighs anything, but it feels like it might tilt the whole earth. He smiles again. Plant it when you're ready, but only when you're ready. You walk away with the seed in your pocket and something strange in your chest like homesickness, but forward-facing. It's not knowledge that saves. It's love that keeps growing even when no one sees. You follow the road until it splits a fork between hillside and city wall. You pause, scanning the sky. Clouds gather, thick and undecided, like they're holding back something they haven't yet chosen to release. You take the left path, the one that curls down toward a ridge just outside the city's edge. The olive trees here grow twisted, like dancers frozen mid-spin. A soft breeze stirs their leaves, and you can hear the city murmuring in the distance, muffled behind stone and memory. Then, the hill opens up, and suddenly, you're standing between two crosses. You weren't prepared for this. The wood is splintered, the ropes hang loose. The center post is gone now, but the soil beneath it remembers. It drinks in silence like an old companion. And to your left and right are two remnants, two thieves, two places where history split not in half, but into 1,000 shards. You sit. You imagine the moment, three men suspended in suffering, one cursing, one pleading, one forgiving. You close your eyes. Try to feel the weight of that middle silence. Try to remember which thief became the first saint and which one died with fists clenched. A voice beside you breaks the quiet. Hard place to be, isn't it? You turn. An older man is standing there, leaning on a walking stick carved from cedar. His eyes are tired, but not unkind. You saw it? You ask. He shakes his head. Heard it from my brother. He was there. He was one of the ones who spit. You look away. He regrets it, the man adds. Most days. You nod. Do you believe it happened? The second thief paradise and all that? He shrugs. I believe people change at the last moment, and I believe some wait too long. You glance at the empty center space again. The sky feels heavier here. I just wonder, you say quietly, How many people have stood in this middle spot, close enough to both sides, listening, watching, and still never choosing? The man leans on his stick. That's the most dangerous place, you know. Not rebellion, not betrayal, but indecision. You frown. He continues. Hell isn't full of villains. It's full of people who never picked a side. You sit with that. He walks away without another word. You don't follow. You look again at the right cross. You imagine the man hanging there broken, breathless, yet somehow full of last-second faith. Then the left cross, just as broken, but bitter to the end. And in the middle, the space where the Savior once hung, arms wide, crowned with thorns, speaking forgiveness into the thickest darkness. You stand, and you whisper not because anyone is listening, but because you need to hear it out loud. I choose. No lightning, no applause, just wind through the olive trees. You step down the hill and wander toward the outskirts of the marketplace. The stalls are being closed for the evening. The smell of fish and fire clings to the air. You notice a boy sitting on a crate, chewing on something like dried dates. He watches the crowd move, but never joins. Why aren't you playing with the others, you ask? He shrugs. I just like watching. You sit beside him. That's dangerous, you say. He frowns. Why? You look at him. Because watchers turn into waiters, and waiters never walk. He blinks. That's dumb. You grin. You're not wrong. He pops another date into his mouth. You think about the temple steps, about people who sat just outside the action, observing, judging, never risking. The boy asks, do you think God notices people like me? You nod, especially people like you. He smiles faintly. Then maybe I'll join the game tomorrow. You ruffle his hair. Tomorrow's a great place to start. You walk on, back toward the road. Behind you, the hill still holds its silence. But inside you, a decision has been made. By the time the sun folds itself behind the hills, you're further from the city than you planned. The road grows quieter, narrower. Stones crunch beneath your sandals, and the sky turns that peculiar shade between burnt orange and dusty violet. You pass a broken cart, half buried in weeds. No one claims it. A donkey stands nearby, chewing lazily on some thistles. You nod at it, and for a second you think it nods back. The path leads you toward a stone house with faded blue shutters and a crooked olive press out front. A candle glows faintly behind one window. You knock. No answer. You knock again. Finally, the door creaks open, and a tall man stares out at you. His eyes are red-rimmed, and the smell of old smoke and wine clings to his robe. Sorry, you begin. I was just passing by. Didn't mean to disturb. He studies you a moment, then opens the door wider. Inside, it's warm. Too warm. Like the fire's been burning all day, but no one's bothered to let the heat out. You see remnants of a meal bread crust, an empty jug, a bowl with something crusted over at the bottom. The man motions for you to sit. You do. I'm Matthias, he says finally. You nod. He eyes you with a strange tension, as if he's both about to weep and laugh. I was once a prophet, he says, then quickly corrects. Well, people thought I was. You don't reply. You let the silence stretch. I used to hear things, he explains. Visions, dreams. You know, voices in the night. A sense that something was just beyond the curtain. You nod slowly. What happened? He leans forward. Nothing. That's what happened. He rubs his temples. I waited and waited and waited. For the voice to come back. For the signs. For the certainty. But it never did. And I kept telling people things I wasn't sure of because I didn't want to let them down. You glance around. The room is filled with half-written scrolls and burned-out candles. The window frames are cracked. The air feels thick, like it hasn't been stirred by truth in years. He continues, I thought I was doing good, but I was just afraid to say, I don't know anymore. You ask gently, and now? He looks down. Now I just drink and wait for the feeling to come back. You look at him, really look. He's not evil, not malicious, just tired, bone tired, like someone who's been holding up the sky too long with a spoon. He gestures toward the fireplace. You believe in judgment? You nod. He swallows. Then maybe mine is this being forgotten, being nothing. You sit with that. The fire crackles like it's trying to offer a reply. Scholars still debate whether prophecy was always direct. You say softly, or if sometimes even the prophets had to guess. He glances at you. That's supposed to make me feel better? You shrug. It's not supposed to do anything. He exhales sharply. I think I miss not knowing more than I miss being certain. You smile. That's probably the beginning of wisdom. He chuckles dryly. Get out of here before I start quoting Ecclesiastes. You stand. At the door, he stops you. Hey. You turn. If he ever speaks to you, tell him I'm still listening. You nod. Outside, the stars have begun stitching themselves across the sky, one by one, unhurried. You walk along the dirt road, past a fig tree. It's different this time, lush, green, almost heavy with fruit. You pluck one, bite it, sweet, earthy, real. Far ahead, a faint light flickers near a well. You approach and find a woman drawing water in the dark. She hums an old tune, one you haven't heard since childhood. She offers you a drink. You accept. Where are you headed? She asks. Still figuring it out, you say. She smiles. That's better than pretending you know. You sit beside her. She tells you about a man who once met her at this very well, knew everything she'd done, still spoke to her kindly, still offered her living water. You don't say it, but you know exactly who she's talking about. I went back to the village and told everyone, she says. Some believe, some didn't, but I never stopped telling it. You sip from the jar again, cool, pure. She turns to you. You've been walking a long time, haven't you? You nod. Looking for truth? You nod again. Sometimes, she says, you don't find truth. Sometimes truth finds you. You let that settle into your bones. It's quiet again, but this time it feels like anticipation, not absence. You thank her and rise. She doesn't ask your name, you don't ask hers. The road calls, and you walk it with new rhythm in your step. The road turns dusty again as you leave the well behind. The stars overhead blink gently, like old friends pretending not to notice how long you've been gone. You walk with your hands tucked into your sleeves, the fig from earlier still warming your palm. It's almost dawn again, the hour where everything looks gray and half-formed like the world hasn't decided what mood it wants to be in yet. Ahead, you hear shouting. Not the angry kind, but the desperate, urgent kind. You duck behind a wall of crumbling stones and peer around it. A man stands in the center of a small courtyard. Robes half draped, hair wild, eyes full of fire. He's preaching or something like it to a handful of tired-looking travelers. They shift on their feet, not quite buying what he's selling. I tell you, the man roars, the day is coming when even your prayers won't be heard. Yo's you, unless you abandon your soft ways and weep for your own sin, you are as doomed as Sodom. You wince, not at the words, but at the way they land. Hard, sharp, with no space for grace to breathe. You step out from behind the stone. One of the listeners notices you and slips away, grateful for the excuse. Another follows. Soon it's just you and him. He narrows his eyes. Come to hear the truth? You approach slowly. Came to hear a voice. He scoffs. They don't want to hear it. They want comfort, sugar on their wounds. But I speak the words of fire. You nod. Fire has its place. He steps closer. But you choose your words carefully. But sometimes people don't need to be burned again. They're already ash inside. He studies you, then looks away. They didn't listen to Jeremiah either. True, you reply. But Jeremiah also wept. He didn't just warn, he bled with them. He says nothing. A silence opens, deeper than just the absence of words. Finally, he mutters, I just don't want them to go to hell. You nod slowly. Neither do I. He looks at you. But there is a hell, and they're heading there. You don't flinch. There's also a shepherd, and he leaves the 99. The man's lip twitches like he might cry or hit you. Instead, he collapses onto the nearby stone step and drops his head into his hands. I used to be kind, he whispers, before I knew too much. You sit beside him. Let the stillness say what words can't. After a while, he lifts his head. Do you think I've gone too far? You glance at his bare feet, caked in dust, his knuckles raw from gripping the staff too tight, his eyes hollowed by zeal without rest. I think, you say softly, you've forgotten the softness of mercy. He exhales hard through his nose. Mercy. He rolls the word around in his mouth like it's foreign, then repeats it quieter. Mercy. You stand. So does he. Scholars still debate, you say gently, whether Judas could have been saved had he just waited 3 more days. The man blinks. You continue, but I wonder how many people gave up just before mercy rounded the corner. He looks like he's about to speak but can't. You leave him there, staring at the sky like he's seeing stars for the first time in years. As you walk on, the edge of the city fades behind you. Hills roll in now, quiet and golden. Sheep bleat in the distance. A young boy waves at you from across a small pasture, then returns to his flute. You hum a little, letting the tune from the well woman still linger. Eventually, you arrive at a crossroads. A weathered wooden sign leans against a post. To the sea, one direction. To Galilee, the other. You pause. The last time you were near the sea, he was there. Teaching from a boat, cooking breakfast on a beach, calling Peter in the middle of a storm. Galilee holds promise too, though. Familiar hills, firelight gatherings, laughing around bread and fish. 2 choices, both holy, both full of ghosts. You whisper to yourself, which path would he take? The wind doesn't answer, but it nudges your robe slightly toward Galilee. Or maybe that's just your feet choosing for you. You start walking. The hills get steeper. Your breath grows heavier. You think about that man back in the courtyard, how anger is often mistaken for passion, how easy it is to shout truth without embodying love. You pray silently as you walk. Not a polished prayer, not liturgy, just this. God, if I ever forget how to be gentle, remind me. You pass an old fig tree not bearing yet, but budding. You smile. You're early this time, you whisper, and you walk on. The road to Galilee winds like an old psalm, gentle in its rise and fall, but heavy with memory. You walk with dust on your feet and yesterday's fig leaf still folded in your cloak. The sky is broad now, open and forgiving, with the sea far behind you and the hills humming their ancient lullaby. You pass a woman on the road carrying a clay jug. She greets you with a quiet shalom, and you nod back. Her eyes linger as if searching your face for something. Recognition, a question, but she doesn't ask, and you don't offer. Some stories don't need to be shared aloud to be understood. Later, you come upon a vineyard, wild and mostly untended. Vines twist around the rocks like they've forgotten what order means. A few grapes still hang low, deep purple and soft. You pluck one, more out of habit than hunger, and pop it into your mouth. It tastes like a forgotten promise. You sit under a nearby fig tree, yes, another one, and rest your legs. The breeze dances through the branches, and somewhere a bird sings a few tentative notes. It's peaceful here, almost too peaceful. Until you hear the voice, I used to work that vineyard. You turn. An older man approaches, walking with a slight limp. His beard is streaked with white, and his eyes carry the weight of too many harvests. My father planted it, he says, and I ruined it. You raise an eyebrow. Ruined? He sits beside you, groaning a little from the effort. Well, not in one day. Took me years. Bad choices. Shortcuts. Let the soil dry out. Let the weeds win. Watched good fruit rot because I didn't want to get my hands dirty anymore. You nod slowly. And now? He shrugs. Now I walk past it and remember who I used to be. Silence again. It has a way of finding you on this road. I thought I was chosen, he says. I thought I had favor. People would come to me for advice, for blessing. I laid hands on the sick. I fasted for 40 days once. He looks you dead in the eye. And yet, I didn't know him. You let the words settle. Not really, he adds. I knew about him. quoted him, built teachings on top of teachings, but I never sat still long enough to actually listen. You offer a soft response. The Pharisees did that too. He sighs. Yeah, I was halfway there already. All robes and echoes. A lizard skitters across the stone path. He watches it go. I even rebuked someone once for healing on the Sabbath. Me. Can you believe it? You don't laugh. It wouldn't be kind. He leans back against a tree, eyes closed. I think I try so hard to be righteous. I forgot to be real. You think of the fig tree. Jesus cursed the one that bore leaves but no fruit. Scholars still debate what that moment meant. Judgment, a parable in action, a symbol of hollow religion. You say quietly, a fig tree without fruit is still a tree, but it can't feed anyone. He opens one eye. Are you calling me a fig tree? You smile. We've all been one. He chuckles. Fair. He pulls a small leather pouch from his cloak and opens it. Inside is a withered grape, nearly black. I've carried this for years, he says, to remind me what happens when you let bitterness grow. He hands it to you. You hesitate. I can't take that. Not to keep, he replies, just to know. You hold it in your palm. It's light, insignificant, but something about it feels weighty, like the moment before a storm or the second after a secret spoken. I want to believe he still knows me, the man says. You hand it back. He never forgot you. He nods. But you see it in his face, he's not sure. You leave him sitting under the tree. As you walk, you hear him begin to sing. A slow tune, something from the Psalms. His voice is cracked, but honest. You continue toward Galilee. Soon the road slopes downward into a valley dotted with sheep and watchful boys tossing stones. A shepherd waves at you with his staff. You wave back. You remember how Jesus once said, "My sheep know my voice." You wonder how many voices you followed in your life that weren't his. Eventually, the sun begins to dip. You find a small inn nestled among the rocks, just a single room with a fire pit and a grumpy owner. He offers you stale bread and goat cheese. You accept. Inside, a few travelers are gathered, murmuring over news from Jerusalem. You catch snatches. The tomb. The guards. Someone saw him. You stay silent. A young man nearby turns and says, "You look like someone who's seen things." You smile. "I've seen a lot of fig trees lately." He laughs, confused but amused. As you lie down later, wrapped in your cloak, the fire crackling low, you feel that old stirring again. Not certainty, not even peace, just a whisper of purpose. Like a voice you once knew, calling from across a field. And as sleep begins to pull you under, you whisper it aloud. Don't let me forget the fruit. By the time you reach the shoreline of Galilee, the air smells like fish and firewood and wet stone. You stop for a moment at the crest of the hill and take in the view. The lake spreads out like a sheet of glass, just touched by dawn. Boats drift in the mist, figures moving slowly, casting nets like old rituals. You recognize one of them immediately, even at a distance, even in silhouette Peter's broad shoulders, the way he stands in the boat like it's still his pulpit. And there's John too, perched at the bow, eyes scanning the shoreline like he's waiting for something, for someone. You walk down toward the sand. No one notices you at first. There's too much motion, too much fish slapping and net pulling and grunting. But then, a voice from the Sharia, voice behind you, just out of view calls, out across the water. "Friends, have you caught anything?" You turn. A man stands by a fire of burning coals, flames licking at the air, fish already sizzling on a flat stone. He's barefoot, cloaked in earth-tone linen, hair damp with morning dew. They answer back, almost annoyed, "Nothing." "Throw your net to the right side of the boat," he says, calm and confident. And they do. You watch their faces twist from confusion to surprise to awe as the net yanks and pulls and fills so fast they nearly topple into the water. Fish spill over the edges, laughter breaks the quiet. John squints at the figure on shore. You can almost hear his heartbeat when he whispers, "It's the Lord." Peter doesn't even hesitate. He wraps his outer cloak around him and jumps into the water like a man baptizing himself in joy. You just stand there, the sand cool beneath your toes. Soon they're all gathered around the fire, wet and breathless, mouths half open in wonder. He says nothing at first, just flips the fish, breaks the bread, hands it out. Deja vu washes over you this meal, this quiet generosity. It's the same rhythm as before, but softer, slower, as if he's giving them time to catch up. Peter sits opposite him, steaming from the lake, hair dripping. "Do you love me?" Jesus asks, like he's asking if the sun still rises. Peter nods quickly. "Yes, Lord, you know I do." "Then feed my sheep." A pause. Again, the question. Again, the answer. Again, the command. But the third time, Peter's face shifts. It's not just affirmation anymore. It's memory. Of fireside betrayal. Of crowing echoes. Of eyes that once met across shame. You glance down at the fire. It's built with the same kind of coal. 3 denials. 3 declarations. 3 layers peeled back and stitched whole again. No thunder, no spotlight, just breakfast and forgiveness and smoke curling into sky. After they eat, he pulls Peter aside. You can't hear what's said, but you see it in their bodies. The lean forward, the nod, the hand on the shoulder. Then Jesus walks, not away, just forward, along the shoreline. Peter glances back at you. Are you coming? You follow. All of you walk the lake's edge, quiet now. The world feels bigger here, like it's been turned inside out. He talks about what's coming, about journeys and martyrdom, and stretching out hands you can't control, you half understand, as always. But it's not the words that stick, it's the tone. Like someone packing a lunch for a long goodbye. Eventually, he stops walking, looks at all of you, smiles, faintly. Go, he says, make disciples, teach them what I taught you, I'll be with you. Then he turns to the waves and walks into them. No, not walks on them this time, just into them, like water welcoming him home. The group stands silent. No one dares ask what to do next. The world just shifted again, and you're left holding nothing but breadcrumbs and sunlight. John speaks first. We need to go back. Back where? Someone asks. Back to the beginning, he replies. You nod slowly. The beginning is wherever he next shows up, and you need to be there when he does. As you turn to leave, you feel something brush your ankle. A fish, freed from the net, flopping back toward the lake. You pick it up, cradle it, then let it go. It vanishes beneath the surface, like a secret that's ready to be believed. You walk up the hill once more, the fire behind you fading into the sea mist. There's no more fog in your heart, just firelight, just a voice that still echoes, just the knowledge that you are not who you were at the start of this walk, and that, wherever he is now, he still breaks bread for the hungry. He still builds fires for the cold. He still calls fishermen by name. You are not lost. You are being sent. You don't talk much on the road back. The silence isn't awkward, it's sacred. Like your soul is digesting something heavy, something holy. Each footstep feels like a prayer now, and each breath carries the ghost of bread and fish and coal smoke. You travel with a small group this time. John, Mary Magdalene, a few others who saw what you saw. No one really says where you're headed. Back to Jerusalem? To the villages? To your families? The truth is, you're all heading toward the next yes. Along the path, you pass a man repairing a stone wall. He squints at you, then waves, like he somehow knows you've been somewhere people don't usually return from. You smile back, you don't say much, just keep walking. The roads are busier now, vendors hawking grain, children chasing each other with sticks, oxen lowing under carts. Life has resumed, even as your insides still feel like they've been shattered and reassembled out of starlight. You pass a small group of Pharisees debating by the roadside, something about Sabbath law or temple funds. One of them mentions the Nazarene in a dismissive tone, and your ears twitch. You don't interrupt, but you do pause. Problem? One of them asks. You shake your head, just listening. He smirks. Then listen well, he was a false prophet. We've seen it before. You don't argue, you don't shout, you just say one thing as you begin walking again. You haven't seen anything yet. And you mean it? Later, near a bend in the road, you stop to rest. A shepherd nearby is herding goats, none of them cooperating. He throws up his hands and mutters, "How can one voice control so many?" You almost laugh. Depends whose voice it is. He cocks an eyebrow. You just nod toward the hills and say, "Try gentler words. Sheep don't respond well to shouting." He shrugs. "They're goats." You laugh. Same principle. As he goes back to herding, you realize you're quoting him without thinking now. His phrases, his parables, they've started blooming out of you like fruit from a long neglected vine finally watered. You sit by a fig tree, still no fruit. It's okay. You're not in a hurry anymore. Mary sits beside you, smoothing her cloak. "You ever think about how it ends?" she asks quietly. You glance at her. "What ends?" "All of this. The movement, the message, us." You pick up a pebble, roll it between your fingers. Maybe it doesn't end, maybe it just multiplies. She nods slowly. "Like seeds. Like yeast," you add. "Like fire." She smiles. "He said those things, didn't he?" "He said a lot of things," you say. "I'm only just now starting to hear them." You think about the people you've seen along this journey. The proud, the hypocrites, the wounded, the weary, the loud ones screaming truth and the quiet ones whispering mercy. And the ones who've hardened their hearts so much, not even resurrection shakes them. You wonder, truly wonder, who can be saved? Who will listen? Who is too far gone, or maybe who's just one word away from coming home? Scholars still debate, Mary says suddenly, whether Judas was predestined. You blink at her. Heavy thought for a fig tree. She shrugs. "I just wonder if he had waited, if he could have sat at the fire again." You nod slowly. "A lot of people could have." You both sit in silence. The wind rustles the leaves. One falls into your lap. You tuck it into your pouch with the others. Maybe one day they'll mean something. Maybe they already do. The others catch up, and you all move on. Later, you camp near a stream. Someone plays a soft melody on a wooden flute. Another roasts flatbread over a crackling fire. The stars blink back into view like they've missed you. You lie on your back and stare at the sky. One star in particular pulses brighter than the others. You think of the Magi, of Herod's panic, of Bethlehem, of the first time heaven whispered its secret in the dark. You close your eyes. In your dreams, you're walking through the city again. But now, everyone sees him. They don't run, they don't mock, they just follow, one by one, like lambs who finally heard their name spoken the right way. You wake before dawn. Someone's already boiling water. Someone else is packing the bread. No one says, "Let's go." You just rise and walk again. It's not always revelation now. Some days are just normal. Dirt, sweat, cracked heels. But there's a thread running through it, a la hum, a frequency, a knowing. He is not here. He has risen. He is out there. And every step you take is a chance to find him again in the faces of the broken, in the bread shared with strangers, in the quiet between questions. You pull your cloak tighter. Tomorrow, someone else will need your story. And you will tell it. Not to save them, but to remind them they are not lost. The road climbs now just enough to make your legs ache and your breath shallow. You've walked for days, and still, you keep moving. Not because you know where you're going, but because something deep in your bones says you must. Every step feels like it's stitching you more tightly into a story far older than you thought you were part of. The morning fog lifts as you crest the hill, and there, in the near distance, is Galilee. It isn't shimmering, it isn't radiant, it's just there, familiar and human. The same fishing boats rocking against the water, the same calls from vendors selling lentils and dates, the same lake he once walked across like it was solid ground. You make your way through the crowd, your face half hidden beneath your cloak, but your eyes scan the people. You're looking for him not in a mystical way, not in the clouds, just in case. Someone bumps your shoulder, a young girl chasing a loose chicken. She giggles and runs off. You smile. You can almost imagine him doing the same when he was her age barefoot and suntanned, laughing without knowing his name would one day undo death. You pass by the old synagogue. It's quiet now, dusty. You pause and peek inside. An elder is reciting aloud to a boy. The boy fidgets. The elder taps his knuckles gently on the scroll. You listen to the words, but do you hear the story? The boy shrugs. You blink slowly. That sounds familiar. You leave before they notice. At the edge of the lake, you find a small fire already lit. Coals glowing, fish sizzling, bread warming on a stone slab, and for just a second, your breath catches. You're not alone. There's a man crouching there, tending the fire. His back is turned. The robe is simple. Hands are calloused. He hums an old psalm under his breath. You freeze. Then he turns and it's not him. Just a man. Kind-eyed, weathered, but mortal. He nods at you. Hungry? You nod slowly, a little. He gestures. Sit. You do. The bread is warm and the fish is perfectly cooked. He passes you a cup of water. No miracles, just nourishment. Been on the road long? He asks. You wipe your mouth. Feels like forever. He chuckles. That's how it goes. You walk and one day realize you're not who you were when you started. You nod. You waiting for someone? He asks gently. You pause. Yes. He nods slowly, almost knowingly. He has a habit of showing up when you've stopped expecting him. You look up, but he's already standing. Where are you going? You ask. He points toward the hills. There's a woman there who hasn't smiled in weeks. I want to try. And then he's gone, disappearing into the mist like a whisper you almost catch, but don't. You sit alone by the fire, and then you do something strange. You start humming, the same tune he did. You don't know the words, but they don't seem to matter. Behind you, footsteps approach. You turn and find Thomas. He drops down beside you, exhausted. I still haven't seen him. You pass him bread. Maybe that's not the point anymore. He eats in silence, then says, I want to believe. You smirk. You're closer than you think. Across the lake, sunlight begins to break through. The ripples shimmer gold, like the world is remembering how to shine again. You and Thomas sit side by side, chewing slowly, quietly, like two men on the edge of something big and unseen. A woman passes by with a jug balanced on her head. She nods politely. You nod back. Thomas says, You think he's still out there? You shrug. Maybe not out there. Maybe in here. You tap your chest. He raises an eyebrow. Bit poetic, don't you think? You smile. He had that effect. And suddenly, you both laugh. Not out of joy, not even out of faith, but out of the sheer audacity of it all, that a man who died now lives, and that somehow, impossibly, he believes in you more than you ever believed in him. You finish your bread, brush crumbs into the fire, and you whisper not for anyone else to hear. I'm not afraid anymore, because you've seen it now. The faces of those who cannot be saved. The mockers, the proud, the unrepentant, the indifferent, the wolves in shepherd's clothing. But you've also seen yourself in every one of them. And still, you're here. You are not perfect. You are not ready, but you are willing. And for him, that has always been enough. So you lie back against the cool earth, listening to the hush of water and distant voices blending with the rustle of leaves. Your body slows. The fire pops gently, and the stars begin to show one by one like silent witnesses to everything you've just remembered. Let your breath even out now. Let your shoulders drop. You are not alone on this road, not really. All around you are footprints of those who have walked it too. Those who doubted, those who wept, those who ran, those who denied and still followed. You don't have to understand everything to belong to it. You don't have to see him to believe he sees you. Some nights, like this one, all you need is the hush of heaven behind a fig tree, the warmth of bread, the shimmer of lake water, catching a rising moon. Let your mind drift now. You can return to the questions tomorrow. Tonight, rest in the truth that you are still walking, still listening, still looking, and somewhere just beyond the edge of morning, he is still calling your name. Slow breath in, slower breath out, and silence.